Okay, this is 9.2 exterior angles and their adjacent interior angle. So take a minute to look at the whole page. Keep in mind, writing is very important. So it's one thing to print this out the way it is right now and write on top of it. You're totally welcome to do that. But the work that I write and the words that I write are really important for you to write because that's really how it's going to get set into your brain. Okay? So let's start with our vocabulary. Think about what exterior angle means to you. You've heard about exterior before. You know what the exterior of a home is. You know what exports are. They all mean to be out, to go out, be on the outside, and this is no different. So an exterior angle is simply an angle that is on the outside of a figure or a polygon. So we're going to write that down in the blank. An angle on the outside of a figure or polygon. Okay. Now, how about the word adjacent? Well, adjacent, many of you have probably heard the word adjacent before, but it's not really a word we use in conversation. But you and I right now are not adjacent. We are not adjacent. We are not near each other. We're pretty far apart, actually. So the word adjacent actually means to be near each other or near something. So we're going to write it like two angles are adjacent if. Let's start with that. Keep it small. Two angles are adjacent if they are, and we're going to write this next part in capital letters, next to each other. Okay, so my point before, I was giving an opposite to the word adjacent. You and I are not adjacent right now because we are not near each other. Okay, the word adjacent means to be near each other, to be next to each other. And it can refer to all sorts of things. Furniture can be adjacent. People can be adjacent. Homes can be adjacent. That is not to say that diagonal is the same. So diagonal is different than adjacent. So we're going to use this word to describe the location of angles in the diagrams down below. Okay, so take a minute to write that down, okay? I'm going to try and stick with the blue and the green whenever I'm referring to exterior angles. I'm going to use the blue color, and when I'm referring to the adjacent angles, I'm going to use the green color. All right. So let's jump down to the bottom image. So this entire image down here. If I were you, I would pause the video and I would write this down, or maybe you printed it and you're lucky enough to have a printer in your house. That's great too. But if you're like me, you don't have a printer that's working, so you can write this down, okay? Don't feel like you have to write the whole thing down, but just keep in mind that the left side of your next section of your paper should be devoted to this model that we're going to do. And the right side, so this right side should be devoted to two problems, okay? So you could really imagine your paper kind of cut in two parts. All right, here we go. So on the left side, so we're going to start over here. On the left side, it says, remember, exterior angles and their adjacent interior angles add up to 180 degrees. So let's use the blue and the green to identify what we're talking about. Okay, the 110 is an exterior angle. Okay, the angle labeled X and the 110 we call adjacent angles. Whenever you have an exterior angle and it's adjacent, you know that the two of them are 180 degrees. So the way we're going to model this is, again, we're going to set up an equation. I'm going to write that equation in red. So I'm going to take what we know. We know that X plus 110 equals 180 degrees. Okay? And then I'm going to use gray to show my work. So how do I get X alone? I subtract 110 from both sides. And I end up with my X value, which is X equals 70 degrees. Okay, so let's read what it says on the bottom. It says, so in order for us to find the measure of X, all we need to do is subtract 180 and 110. Okay, and if you look at the work, that is what's happening here. Right here, that's what's happening. But my advice is still like it was last week. Setting up an equation is going to make life a lot easier. Okay, so again, the green half circle is reminding us, just like a half circle, any half circle, okay, is 180 degrees. I would write this down. Okay. All right. Let's try this on practice number 1. Okay. So again, I'm going to use blue to identify my exterior angle. So the 106 is my exterior. I'm going to use green to identify the adjacent pair. These two angles are adjacent. Together they make up 180 degrees because there's the line. Here's a line and they are adjacent. They are not all adjacent angles make 180 degrees, but because these are an exterior and an interior on a line, that's why they make a half circle. That's why they make 180 degrees. So again, I'm going to write my work. X plus 106 equals 180. And I go ahead and I subtract 106 from both sides. Take your time. So 180 minus 106 is going to give me 74 degrees. Okay? So I'm going to write that over here. So X equals 74 degrees. Okay, let's try practice number 2. I'm sure you noticed already that practice number 2 is a little different. We have a Y as an exterior angle. And if we look for the interior that's adjacent to the Y, it's not labeled, right? Uh-oh. So what do? Well, we need to think about last week's lesson. Look for the tick marks. See the tick marks? Mark those, and think of them as arrows. Now, do you remember what they were trying to tell us last week? They were telling us that the angles, so the 57 and the unlabeled angle, these tick marks told us that these angles are equal. Let's go ahead and write that. 2 arrows pointing to them, label them equal angles. Now, if they're equal and one of them is 57, that means that the other one is 57. Okay? So I'm going to delete a little. Make sure you pause the video if you haven't written this down yet. I'm going to delete a little bit of this. And I'm going to write the 57 over here also. And now I'm going to rejoin my adjacent pair. And look at that. Now I have those two angles, and I know that together they make 180 degrees. So I'm going to write my equation now. 57, the green 57, plus the blue y equal 180 degrees total. Okay. Now I'm going to subtract 57 from both sides. And I get y equals, so I need to make this into a 10, make this into a 7. 10 minus 7 is 3. 7 minus 5 is 2. And there's a 1 there. Okay. So it's 123 degrees. That's it. That's all there is for today. Okay. Bye.